always says this about all his enemies. They're basically all spawned from Destiny, right? Destiny has brainwashed all of them, even though we openly call out Destiny as a degenerate fucking creep who
Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. Hi folks, it's Falcon. Supergiant Games is one of the foundational independent game studios, and while they found a lot of success early on with games like Bastion and Transistor, Bastion to this day being my favorite game of theirs, the first Hades was their big breakthrough hit. Hades is an all-time classic and an absolute masterclass of the roguelike genre, so it's not really a surprise that in May of 2024 they launched their first ever sequel into early access. Now, just about a year and a half later, the 1.0 version of Hades 2 is out. I've played it, and there's no beating around the bush here. This game is fantastic. The first game is excellent, and this sequel takes everything they learned from making the first and used it to make an even more confident sequel that improves on the original's design in some smart ways. This one starts off with a bit more dramatic hook than the first. Instead of playing as the world's most persistent runaway, this game tasks you with a revenge mission against the Titan of Time. The Greek gods of Hades 2 are in full-on conflict. Hades himself has been imprisoned, and it's up to you to save him and bring the Mad Titan to justice. It's a simple but compelling setup that, much like the first game, gets expanded on through well-written but very punchy dialogue with your allies through flashbacks and playable memories that just do a great job expanding the world. It has worked since Bastion, and goddammit does it still work. The basic gameplay is very similar, almost pretty much the same to the original game. You start off at your base, one might call it a bastion, and at your base you talk to allies where you acquire upgrades, and you do all that kind of crap before starting your run. You travel through 4 different zones, traveling through a randomly generated collection of rooms, fighting enemies, collecting upgrades, and boons granted by the gods that give you various improvements to your abilities that drastically alter how you play the game. Each zone ends with a boss fight, and your ultimate goal is to return to Tartarus, avenge your family, and defeat Kronos in the House of Hades. Each run will last around 20 to 40 minutes, and at least at first, you're not going to survive the night. While each run is randomized, there's a heavy emphasis on progression here. In fact, Hades 2 gives you even more routes to improve your character and expand the options in your home base than the first games. And the new stuff here actually manages to feel more meaningful and satisfying. Stuff like the new Arcana system, where you unlock and equip cards that give a ton of powerful bonuses, but there's also a limit to how many of those you can use at once. These things are a lot more fun to get and tinker with than the previous game's upgrade paths, which were mostly just flat upgrades you'd unlock with a tiny percentage. And just gotta say it, this is the kind of thing that they needed to improve. With the Arcana, you get stuff like Death Defiance, which lets you survive a normally fatal attack, where you can constantly regenerate mana, perform special abilities faster. As you progress through the game, you can increase the amount of Arcana you can have activated at any one time, so you'll get significantly more powerful as the game goes on compared to where you started, but there's a little more to consider here than just making the numbers go up. I like that. I just think that the early game progression is just a big improvement over the first game. Hades 2 just... I mean, you're always unlocking something new or getting introduced to a new gameplay system, so even if you end up eating dirt with your most recent run, it doesn't feel like you're just treading water. There's something to look forward to at all times when you return to your base at the crossroads. There's also an entire other direction to go in, which is great as well. You don't just go down to face Kronos in the underworld. There's also a surface to explore, which is another 4 zones, each with their own unique dangers and bosses. The surface is definitely more dangerous in terms of the 2 paths you can take. At first, you'll die just by being there. This new path basically doubles the amount of stuff that's in the sequel, and it's another way that the game smooths out the progression. By having a more advanced and difficult second path, they've made the first path to go down a little bit easier overall. The bosses are less of a difficulty wall in later parts of the run. Kronos himself is no joke, but every other fight isn't quite as bad. The boss design here is a lot of fun, and they did a great job making them not feel like a drag, even though you're essentially fighting the same boss over and over again. Skilla is always a highlight. She's the boss of the second zone, and she fights you with songs that actually change depending on the run. There's a backup guitarist and a drummer. They complicate things. It's a super fun fight. There's nothing here that I dreaded taking on, like with the Minotaur or Theseus from Hades 1. Man, those guys just sucked. So the general structure of the game is very much similar to the first. It's pretty much the same even, but how you actually play ends up feeling pretty different. And this is all down to how the new protagonist, Malinois, controls. Along with the standard attacks and special attacks is the ability to cast, which at its most basic level creates a circle that slows down enemies. It might not seem that useful at first, but with the right boons it could become a devastatingly powerful attack, and you can center your entire run around it. There's also a mana bar to keep track of this time. Your standard and special attacks have modified more powerful Omega attacks that cost mana. There's also powerful super abilities that require spending a certain amount of mana in a fight to use.
I believe is right. 30 seconds
It was
before you
Professor
attack.
Pierre.
Get
So over the
ready.
past month, I have said this many times, but it's simply the truth. Every time there is a major event in the world these days, the reaction to it trickles down into places we normally talk about on this channel, like the gaming industry and content creators, and that's happening again with a recent shooting, where now gaming is being nefariously pulled into the situation, and also content creators like
Battle starts
Hassan
in
are
5,
having very
4,
bizarre
3,
reactions
2,
to what's going on with that situation, also things stemming from it. Now, as you can see here, this article is one of many, trying to tie a recent shooting to violent video games. We have seen this argument over and over again for decades, and I swear it gets more and more pathetic each time it happens. Now, what is the context? Well, recently, a sniper opened fire at a Dallas ICE facility, and in his own notes, he wanted to stoke fear across all ICE agents, and this 29-year-old sniper, whose name I believe is pronounced Stupid Idiots, he saw a unmarked van enter the facility, and he believed in his mind it was filled with ICE agents. The reality, though, was that it was filled with detainees. So in this guy's pursuit of punishing ICE agents, he opened fire on a van and ended up killing a bunch of one migrant. He killed one migrant and wounded 2 others, and hit absolutely 0 ICE agents. And I guess either part of his plan or coming upon the realization of his failure, he then took the rifle, turned it on himself, and rearranged his skull, so to speak. And that is that. And there's been a lot of discussion and question from people like Hassan Piker, who's like, we'll never know the reason this guy did it. We don't know anything about his politics or his viewpoints, despite the fact that when you take a 2-second look into this guy's life, he had pro-communist profile pictures on his social media accounts. He also wrote anti-ICE on one of the unspent cartridges he left behind at the shooting. Yeah, I guess we'll never know what this guy was thinking when he was trying to do this act. And as you can see, anti-ICE was written here, which, ironically enough, was the name of a benefit from a few months ago that, as you can see, among the panelists, number 1 on there is Hassan Piker, which I think is very, very ironic. And to make things even more ironic, here is a small snippet of what he said at that
874 Bellevue Drive, and I'm gonna kill you with my AR-15. Like, that's the type of messages they were leaving in this dude's office, and he's resigning. So I think that people are a lot more radical now. This is a time, is an unprecedented time to really get others on board, to explain to them that it's not your neighbors, it's not like a Guatemalan migrant that is responsible for all the shit that you're going through on a daily basis. And I think this is a unique opportunity to get even Devers and Carlos on board with that, like White Wymons. And you actually wrote about this, and it was a great video where you talked about, you know, someone has to do it. See, when I say that, everyone knows exactly what I mean. I think that shows that there's a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and untapped revolutionary potential, as a matter of fact. And it's a great opportunity for organizing, I think, in these unprecedentedly horrible times.
Yeah, this is the guy who recently has been really hammering away that he's so against political violence of all forms, but then again, his actions completely defy him, and that's just one of many, many different examples, and it's just crazy to be someone like this who has so many examples of violent rhetoric, and also, you know, participating in a benefit that literally is called anti-ICE. It's just very ironic to see, and, well, as I pointed out earlier, places like the New York Post and many other individuals are trying to make a connection between the shooters playing of violent video games to the actions he took at the ICE facility. And I think this is just, again, so pathetic. This has been something people have been trying for decades, and it's gonna fail just like all the previous ones. There is no evidence to support that. In fact, if you want evidence that it doesn't impact real life, look at this guy's Steam account. He played, 7,000 hours on Rust, and he couldn't hit a single target? That alone is proof that video games do not influence violent actions in real life. But of course, this would get hit with a note, which is awesome. Everything like this should get hit with a note, with plenty of sources that probably don't surprise you with their messages, where they're saying there's absolutely no proof of a connection between violent video games and committing violence in real life. In fact, they point out in this article that the US Supreme Court addressed this and came to the conclusion back in 2011 that no psychological